Hi everyone, it's Natalie and welcome back to my channel. Today I come at you looking a little bit like a dork because I wanted to try out using my new mic, but I don't have a mic stand yet. I am kind of scared of investing in one when I don't fully understand how they're even used, and when my filming setup is like so sloppy that I'm like, will it even work? Like, if I invest my money in a mic stand, will it even work? So I don't really have anything I can hang it off of from. So for now, you'll just see it. You'll just see it. And of course, if I don't actually even like how the audio turns out, I will just use the audio from the camera. Like, I will gladly use that even though you will see me holding a mic. Then it will just be redundant, but I don't care because you don't know if it's gonna work until you actually try it. So that's what we're doing here today. So that's not what this video is about. What this video is about is some of the books that I've read not so recently. And so in this case, I think I'll finally be talking about some of the books that I read in April at long last. But the first one I'm going to be talking about is actually one that I finished in the end of March, like the last day of March. So that book is The Fire This Time by Jessamyn Ward. This is actually a collection of essays and poems / songs that is edited by Jessamyn Ward, and I rated it 5 stars. It is essentially inspired by the book by James Baldwin. I think it's by James Baldwin. Yes, it is inspired by the book by James Baldwin. And so this was just a phenomenal collection, honestly. I really enjoyed it. It felt so contemporary. My review for it on Storygraph is pretty shitty because I was trying to read it really quickly so that I can count it for a Buzzword readathon. And so I honestly thought the collection was brilliant. It was so well written. I thought so many of the essays were literally just like so beautifully written. Like, I hadn't read an essay collection where I genuinely felt like the writing was just stunning and so unique. All these authors had very particular writing styles in their essays and songs or / poems. So really, I would highly recommend it. Just definitely check it out if it's something that interests you, or if you had heard about it but weren't quite sure if you wanted to pick it up. I would highly suggest that you do. The next book I'm going to be talking about is The Galaxy and the Ground Within by Becky Chambers. This is the 4th and last book in the Wayfarer series, and it was such a great conclusion for this series. It wasn't at all what I was expecting, if I'm being completely transparent about it, but I definitely highly enjoyed it. And if you saw my annotation video, you know I highly annotated this. And so in this book, essentially, without revealing too many spoilers about the rest of the series, we're essentially following how many aliens? Pei, Tupo, Olu, Rovig, Speaker. We're following 5 main characters, and they're all aliens, which is what I thought was so particular, like so interesting. Such an interesting way to finish this series, that we finished just focused on the aliens, and I really like that. But essentially, we follow them as they get stuck in this planet that's more like a space station than a planet. And so it's about their plans kind of unraveling and them learning more about this particular species that is part of the planets that basically make the rules for the rest of the galaxy. So there's this one species that is part of this leadership that most species don't know that much about, and so it's also about them learning about the species. Anyway, so I rated this 4.5 stars. It wasn't quite a 5-star for me, but I really enjoyed it. I feel like I've said that already like a million times, but it's true. At first I was just kind of vibing with the story, which tends to happen with me with Becky Chambers. Like, I don't start her books and immediately sucked into the story. Like if I'm sucked into the story, it's primarily because I like Becky Chambers' writing, and so I just enjoy the writing for what it is, but not because of the story per se. And so this took quite a while for me to feel invested in the narrative. It wasn't like I was immediately attached to the characters and compelled by what was going on in their lives. But ultimately, I did end up really liking these characters. Like, Tupo was my fave. Tupo was precious. Tupo is my everything. I would protect Tupo with my fucking life. Tupo is just great. Tupo is just great. And I keep using the name Tupo because Tupo has, the pronouns for Tupo are like sir and se, and I don't want to use them incorrectly, so I'll just keep using Tupo. Anyway, Tupo is fantastic. Love Tupo. The rest of the characters I also really enjoyed. I thought the most challenging character for me was Pei, which was interesting because we know Pei from the first book in the series, and so I was expecting to really like her off the bat, but I really did not. I still found her a compelling character, and I still liked that through Pei's character we talked about, what's the word, reproductive rights. Through Pei we talked about reproductive rights because Pei's species has this whole process for when one of the females is ready to lay an egg or lay an egg. Let's just call it laying an egg. So they have this established process and no one really questions it. Like if a woman is ready to lay her egg, then she just follows the protocol. Like she doesn't question it. She doesn't think, oh, maybe I'll do X or Y. She just straight up does it. And so Pei has the opportunity to, you know, follow the typical, it's not really the typical protocol, but she has the opportunity to do what her species does whenever one of the women is ready to fertilize her egg or whatever, however it works. And she doesn't want to. She just straight up doesn't want to. And she keeps thinking like, there's no reason for me not to want this. I just don't want it. And she's trying to come to terms with the fact that if she doesn't want it, that's reason enough not to do it. But she's not used to thinking of things that way, you know? And so that was one of the interesting parts here. Another part is that Speaker is our alien, which is the species that the rest of the aliens in the book are learning a little bit more about. And with Speaker, we learn about, not learn, but we get to talk about issues such as, it's very metaphorical, it can be disability, it can be just accessibility in general, because this species, unlike the rest of the species, breathes CO2, whatever it's called, and so they don't breathe oxygen. And so all the environments that are good for most of the species in the CG are toxic for the species, and obviously the home planet of the species, which no longer exists, would be toxic to the rest of the alien species. And so it's these conversations about accessibility and who do we prioritize in making comfortable. And this also connects to colonialism, because this species, as I just mentioned, doesn't have a home planet anymore, because if I'm not mistaken, it was colonized, and I don't remember well what ends up happening with it, but they no longer have access to their home planet. And they keep asking the CG for, or the GC, I think it's this GC, whatever. I think it's the GC. They keep asking the GC for a new planet so that they have somewhere to live, but now the GC is taking a very pro-life stance on it, and they're like, no, we can't colonize another planet even if it has no sapient life forms, because that may stunt the life that was going to grow there. So like there's no sapient life, but they're basically protecting that possible sapient life that might come. but at the same time they're doing that in a way that isn't really, it's hypocritical, because other species are still allowed to colonize other planets or have fights over who gets to stay with a planet, even though it shouldn't have been their planet to colonize in the first place, because there had been life forms there had been sapient life there. So it's just incredible, fantastic. As always, Becky Chambers just writes excellent sci-fi novels that explore themes and topics that are relevant to today's day in a way that doesn't feel pedantic, but that still I feel is very approachable in the sense that you do get the sense of like what Becky Chambers thinks is like the right thing, but it doesn't feel like Becky Chambers is trying to shove that down your throat, you know? And like, it's just great. It's just fantastic. So yeah, those are the main things I wanted to talk about this book. And of course, as always, I would highly, highly, highly recommend picking it up. It is just fantastic. I love this whole series. And so if I have to rank it, I would say the second book is still my number one. And then I would put the first book in second place, the fourth book in third place, and then the third book in fourth place as my ranking of the whole series. Because truly the third book is subpar in comparison to all the other books in the series. But I do understand like if some people enjoy the third book more than this one, because again, this did have a slower beginning. But whatever, if you're here for the chill sci-fi vibes that are gonna make you think and question your assumptions, then this is what you should pick up. The next book I'm going to be talking about is The Sprite and the Gardener by Ree Abrego and John Witt. This is a graphic novel slash comic, a very short one. Like it has maybe 80 pages. And it's just this very cute story where sprites for many, many years, centuries, took care of plants, helped grow them and all of that. But then once humans showed up, humans started taking care of plants for themselves and making their own gardens, and so sprites have stopped using their magic of growing plants. And so in this story we follow this human who doesn't know a lot about gardening and so keeps killing plants, and so one sprite comes into her garden and starts helping her grow plants. So I rated this 5 stars. It was just so cute. It was so precious. Like honestly, I would recommend this to anybody. Like if you're looking for like a short, quick, and very sweet read, this is exactly the kind of book you want to pick up. Like it might take you maybe half an hour, maybe 45 minutes to read it, and it will just be a very wholesome time. Like one, it's just a very kind story. Just when you think there might be like a more dramatic reveal or a more dramatic moment, it really is a wholesome and kind story. It's one of the least stressful reading experiences I've ever had, I think. It's really there to depict this scenario of just people helping each other and doing what's best for one another and showing each other kindness. And so that's what made it such a remarkable read, you know? And the other thing that I really enjoyed about it is that with graphic novels, anything that's very visual in nature with writing, I absolutely adore when the visual storytelling is on point, and that is the case with this graphic novel. There's very, very little dialogue in this graphic novel. It is used with precision, with care. There is no wasted word. There is no wasted text in this graphic novel. Honestly, most of the time the image, the art is what's carrying the narrative. And I absolutely adore that. There's nothing I dislike more than a graphic novel full of text. Like, no. Know your visual storytelling and you will be able to convey what you're trying to convey without filling up so much of the page with text. And so yeah, I would highly, highly recommend this. I got this as an ARC from NetGalley. I'm really happy I noticed that they had it available as read now, because it was just a precious and wonderful time. The last book I'm going to be talking about is You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson. I'm going to read the summary of this book because like I have some memories of the plot, but I don't want to misspeak. So after reading the summary, essentially it boils down to our protagonist Liz wants to go to this very particular college to study medicine, and she wants to be in the orchestra of this college. And so she was expecting to receive a scholarship, but she doesn't get it. And so she remembers that her school gives a scholarship to the winners of Prom King and Queen. And so she decides to participate as a possible contender for Prom Queen. And so part of the story is her trying to deal with how to market herself, let's say, as Prom Queen. And the other part is essentially her falling in love with another of the contestants trying to win Prom Queen. So that's essentially the story. So I originally rated this 4 stars, but now I'm not entirely sure because honestly, when I think back on it, I can barely remember anything about it, but I don't know if that's just me because my memory has been really shitty lately. Like I'll finish a book and then I'll be like, thoughts? I don't have any. So maybe it's just me, maybe my memory is just being difficult, but part of me kind of wants to lower this to a 3 just because it was like really enjoyable at the time, but not as memorable as I would like it to be. But for now, I'll just keep it at 4 stars. But overall, part of the reason I originally rated it 4 stars is because it was a very compulsively readable book. Like it was very easy to read. I picked it up as an audiobook and I was glad to listen to it. I was constantly trying to put it on, do something that I could listen to the audiobook so I can continue in the story. So I felt like the writing style was very easy and light, and yeah, just compulsively readable because it was so easy and light, you know? And so that was one of the main reasons that I enjoyed this, because it was just very smooth sailing. Like there was never any parts where I was like struggling through it because I couldn't get into the writing or I couldn't get into the characters or whatever. And overall, I did enjoy our characters. I really liked Liz and her relationship with her brother. Her brother has sickle cell syndrome. I think that's what it's called. And so we both learn more about sickle cell syndrome and overall have this look into this sibling relationship where the older sister feels very protective of her younger brother instead of the other way around, of like the older brother feeling protective of his sister. So I like that. And in general, I don't feel like we have enough books that have characters that have sickle cell syndrome, so I just thought that representation was great. Our main character Liz also has anxiety, and she has pretty severe anxiety. Her panic attacks are quite severe, and so I also appreciated that we had that and that we got to see her coping mechanisms and, like, you know, like legitimate, probably professionally, I think it was like a professional suggested these coping mechanisms to her, and so I really enjoyed the incorporation of that. So overall, her relationship with Amanda was cute. It did have some like teen angst, teen drama, but it was fine. I still enjoyed it and overall thought it was cute. And did I think the ending was a bit cheesy and expected and way too happy? Yes, but I thought that was fair. I'm like, sure, give this queer girl, this queer black girl, her happy ending. Like, I don't give a shit, do it. Let's put that hopeful energy out there. So overall, a very cute story. I can definitely see why last year so many people were reading it. It really is a great summer read because it's so light and easy to get through. Oh, the last thing I was going to say is that this definitely still has moments of where Leah faces racism and homophobia. So it's not like the entirety of the thing is very lighthearted. It has its serious moments. It definitely has its more dramatic moments as well. But overall, I feel like the energy, the sense of this book is a hopeful and happy one. And so I think that's why so many people were really connecting with it and really enjoying it. So yeah, that's everything I have to say about that book. Anyway, so that's it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you would like to follow me on any of my social media, I will have the links to that down below in the description. But for now, see you next time.